Greetings from Scandinavia, a region blessed with towering mountains, majestic fjords, and some of the world's most extreme railways. The plan is to travel right across Scandinavia by rail in the winter when the snow is as high as a reindeer's eye and there's virtually no daylight. But I just can't stop myself. I have to find out how war, those guns which are still active are pointed over there towards Russia, iron ore, the whole train is over 8,000 tons. And the most generous man on earth, so this is the home of Father Christmas, inspired a railway network that has to contend with some of the worst weather on earth. Oh, so much colder. Is this A, a really good idea, or B, really, really stupid? Answer B. All aboard the Arctic Express. Zooming along the longest, deepest fjord in Norway. Ow! We're travelling by boat because this is the way that for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, most Scandinavians got around. And they were probably very cold. Sonje Fjord is a 130-mile waterway connecting the coast of Norway to the interior. Over the centuries, this fjord has seen Viking longships, Victorian steamships, and German destroyers. Being blessed with magnificent waterways meant Scandinavians were relatively slow to build railways. But when they did finally build one here, they created one of the most beautiful on Earth. Oh, I've always wanted to be filmed taking my kit off. So this is Flam, F-L-A-M, pronounced Flom. It's a Norwegian thing. It was a little tiny farming and fishing village until the 19th century. And then a load of really wealthy English salmon fishermen came here, and the sport apparently was fantastic. Flom quickly became a world-famous tourist centre, but it's very hard to get to other than by boat. So when the Norwegians started planning their first major railway in the 1870s from Bergen to Oslo, they agreed to build a little branch line down here. A promise that took over 70 years to fulfill. Until the middle of the 20th century, the only way you could get to Flom was either by boat or by horse over these terrifying mountain passes. But then at the end of the Second World War, they opened up what's now become very well known as the Flam Railway, or Flambana. These days, this railway is one of Norway's biggest tourist attractions, carrying nearly 1 million people a year. It's worth mentioning the train early this morning broke down. It could not get through thick snow, and that doesn't happen very often in Norway. So, in an ideal world, this one will go all the way to the top. But oh, cut that fine. We're off. This is one of the steepest railways in the world. We go up 3,000 feet in just 50 minutes, so it's pretty sharp, but the views are supposed to be absolutely fantastic. It's the perfect way to start my Winter Wonderland tour of Scandinavia. It's only going to get tougher from here. Over the next 6 days, I'm planning to travel over 1,800 miles across Scandinavia, working my way further and further north. This morning, I'm heading up to Myrdal, where I can join the main line from Bergen to Oslo, the highest railway in Scandinavia. On day 2, I'll visit Stockholm, and then take the night train north to the port of Luleå. I've got an important meeting over in Finnish Lapland. Before I explore the Malmbanan, the great iron ore line of Arctic Scandinavia, stopping off to see one of the world's biggest mines, before ending my journey back in the fjords of Norway at Narvik. This is the first big snow of the winter here in Norway. Look at that valley. Just stunning. It's really quiet as well, like the train's just padding along in the snow. After a 50-year wait, construction of the Flåmsbana began in 1924. But it was still underway when the Second World War broke out. It's only 12 miles, but now I've started to travel up this, you realise why it took such a long time to build. It must have been so tough. It was built by around 200 itinerant workers, known as rallars. Just imagine building a railway through this thick rock, all sorts of problems from avalanches, and also because they were just using very basic picks, shovels, lots of problems doing the actual work, but also because they were doing so much dynamite blasting. Years later, many of them died from silicosis. Progress was slow. They had to build 20 tunnels, which made up nearly a third of the length of the line. The whole community got involved, with local carriage owners transporting tourists by day and construction materials by night. But by 1940, the line was still not complete when Nazi Germany invaded Norway. They wanted control of the North Sea coast and the strategically important fjords where warships and U-boats could hide and be resupplied. By summer 1940, the Germans had occupied the whole of Norway. But it turned out to be a good time for this particular railway because of its access to the fjords. So they trebled the workforce and got the railway completed in a matter of months. And they even made use of a local power source, the Kjosfossen waterfall. Absolutely breathtaking waterfall. The tourists, you can see, all love it, but also the Germans loved it as a source of hydroelectricity. And it shows how important this railway line was to them that in 1944 they electrified this railway line. The Flåmsbana's train remains state-of-the-art. They have to be to run throughout the winter on this steep, dangerous line. It goes up and goes down at 5.5%. Now that is very, very sharp, and no train really likes that, particularly going down. They've got 5 separate braking systems, air brakes, you name it, every sort of brake. And I really like the idea of us having all those brakes because otherwise this could be a remake of the runaway train. In reality, we've arrived at the top, safe and sound. Oh, what a great start. I love that. Flåmsbana. It calls itself one of the world's most beautiful railways. I think it probably is. This is Myrdal, right up at the top. And from here, we're hoping to get across to get a mainline train to Oslo via outer space. Despite the heavy snowfalls, my connection to Oslo has arrived right on time. Right, this is the 2:10 to Oslo. Oh, doors work. As you can tell, it's already getting quite dark. It'll be pitch black here by 3:30, but we will have had about 7 hours of daylight. When we get further up north to Lapland in a few days' time, we get less than 3 hours, and it's going to be much, much colder. I think we're somewhere down at the end. Very quiet. Oh, not long to get comfy, nice and warm though. Icicles there everywhere. Thick snow now. And up we go, higher into the mountains. The last station, Myrdal, was 2,844 feet. Next one down here, Finse, is 4,009 feet. That's nearly as tall as our Ben Nevis. And it's a really famous place. It's the highest railway station in Norway and one of the coldest in the world. This is Finse. Always thick snow and ice right through the winter months. Just beautiful. Captain Scott and his team came here in 1912 to prepare for their ill-fated expedition to the South Pole. And about 70 years later, George Lucas came here when he was making The Empire Strikes Back. Okay, this is Finse in Norway, but it's also the ice planet, Hoth. Back from the ice planet. From the 1880s, 15,000 rallars worked on the construction of this line. The first Oslo to Bergen train ran in 1909, and from that winter, massive snowplow trains were always used to keep the line open. Today, however bad the weather or deep the snow, they keep this line open every day of the year. This is the sort of snow you get in England maybe once every 100 years. They get this stuff every single winter, and everything still works. And yet, you get a little few flakes in England, just the size of a little bit of dandruff. The whole country grinds to a halt. They were quite slow to adopt railways around here, but judging by this one, they've made up for lost time. Just padding along. Padding along. Oslo. Day 2.
You know those presenters who come up and go, well, I can't do that. There's a hint of deja vu here. It's 5:15 in the morning. It's extremely cold. It's very, very wet. I've seen nothing of Oslo, and now I'm going to Sweden.
My train looks like Sweden's answer to the bullet train, but it's almost empty.
Oh, starting to feel a bit more human now. This is kind of funny. I ordered a coffee and a Danish, and I was told very archly, it is not a Danish, it is a Norwegian. So I've got a coffee and I've got a Norwegian pastry.
This is one of Swedish Railway's X2000 fast tilting trains. It should take 5 hours to cover the 350 miles to Stockholm. Built in the 1860s, this was one of the first long-distance railway lines in Scandinavia.
We're in Sweden now. Lots and lots of lakes, lots of fir trees. One thing about Sweden is that the government resisted having railways here for a long time. In the 19th century, they said, we do not want to go on a costly adventure building railways. We have many, many beautiful canals. We have lots of waterways. We don't need them. And eventually, international example, really, and general market forces persuaded them. And now they have a fantastic railway system.
As we get close to Stockholm, the train fills up with commuters.
Just the same as all over the world, commuters doing emails first thing in the morning, talking to their bosses, reading their papers, eating, some of them fast asleep.
This was once the heart of Viking country, but I can't say I'm seeing much sign of that burning and pillaging spirit on this train. It's a great line, really efficiently run, and we're going to be bang on time. But this is not the railway that transformed Sweden in the 19th century. The one that did lies in the far north, and that's where I'll be heading tonight.
It's a nice journey. Coming into Stockholm and having seen nothing at all of Oslo,
going to make a point of having a good look round what is a really beautiful ancient city. Hello, Stockholm. Stockholm is the biggest city in Scandinavia. There's water everywhere. Built across 14 islands, connected by over 50 bridges, it's a kind of urban archipelago. If you come to Stockholm from working in London, the air is so pure. This is such a lovely, clean city. And one reason for that is the public transport. Loads of trams in this city. They're really nice, and it's a great way to get around. This is such a nice city. They've had trams in Stockholm for over 130 years, but not so long ago they narrowly avoided extinction. At the main depot, I'm meeting Dan Erik Goransson, one of the volunteers who helped save the trams. You must be Dan.
Yes, hello, Chris.
How are you? Pleased to meet you.
Welcome.
So many different trams here.
Oh, yes, many old trams.
I didn't realise there were so many different types.
Well, we have types all from 1907.
Is that when the trams started in
No,
Stockholm?
no.
When did they start?
It was electric trams in 1901, horse trams in 1877.
So when did things for the tram start to go wrong in Stockholm?
First underground came in 1950. Then cars came. The final death came when we changed over to right-hand driving in 1967.
Oh, because you used to drive on the left, didn't you?
Yes. So in 1967, in September, the last few tram lines which remained in Stockholm closed.
But it wasn't quite game over. In 1991, the city approved a new heritage line to boost tourism.
So they rebuilt part of the old Line 7, asked us to operate on a voluntary basis, and it was a great success, of course. And they decided to extend this museum line further down into the city center and put modern local trams in operation. And that started in 2010.
There are now 4 operating tram lines carrying thousands of passengers every day. But the trams are now an essential part of Stockholm, aren't they? For the
yes,
tourists and
yes.
for the locals.
I can tell you, last week we had a very big snowstorm here, and all public transport stood still. But the tram line number 7 worked. We are the experts.
It's quite interesting that something that dates back to the 19th century, when it was horse-drawn, is now really the thing of the future.
Oh yes, it is, absolutely.
Dan has kindly offered me a ride on this lovely 1926 A1 tram that fortuitously runs near the station where I need to catch my next train. It's interesting that trams were virtually finished in this city and now they're very much back again. These would do really well in London. Stockholm Central Station. Towering in front is the man who brought Sweden into the railway age. Nils Eriksson, as well as having the most Scandinavian name you possibly can, he was one of the founding fathers of the Swedish railways. From the 1850s onwards, he built and designed hundreds of miles of railways. He was a great man, but the Swedish pigeons don't seem to respect him. Don't they know it's Christmas? You never think of the Swedes as being particularly a religious nation, and yet trees, decorations, lights, and just look, must be the most festively decorated Christmas station anywhere in the world. In the words of the great composer Roy Wood, I wish it could be Christmas every day. Time to head north to Arctic lands of snow, ice, and vast mineral resources. The railways built to access those resources helped make Sweden the country it is today. My overnight sleeper is taking me 660 miles
up the coast to the Baltic port of Luleå. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's already dark, leaving Stockholm. Tomorrow morning, we get to the end of this Arctic Circle sleeper overnight train, 6:30, it'll still be pitch black. There's not really enough room here to swing a cat in, which is lucky because I didn't actually pack a cat, but it's all right, it's quite cosy. Look, there's a bed up here, see? See that? It's all right. Put that out of the way. What I love, they always do this in boats, but particularly in these trains, they manage to squeeze as much as they possibly can out of every cubic inch. In here is not just a wash basin and a loo, but actually a shower. Look at that. Now that is clever, isn't it? We'll close the curtain, bar of soap up there. Look, and all this is a shower. It's a bit like Psycho, this. After my encounter with Norman Bates, I've worked up quite an appetite. This is a nice overnight. We're going from the south of Sweden, where most people live, where most of the towns are, up to the north, where nobody in their right mind lives, where temperatures have been recorded as low as -50 centigrade. But there are supposed to be great natural resources, all sorts of really exciting military history stuff, and an amazing railway line. In the meantime, there's not much to look at, but we've got reindeer stew. Oh, don't worry, kids, this is not Prancer. No Dancer. Oh, no. It's a tomato. Day 3, 6:30 a.m. And we've arrived. Somewhere. Oh! It is so much colder. Where am I? Luleå. Luleå. It's very cold. Thank you very much for a lovely journey. Apparently this is a port. It'll be light in about another 3 hours. I need coffee. Bye-bye. What a nice lady. Just looking at the thick ice on the river there. Look at that. That is frozen. All the Swedish trains we've been on are very modern. But I'm going to see a guy called Rolf Nord, Rolf of the North. And he's got something altogether more quirky and more ancient he wants to show us. What on earth is this? You must be Rolf.
Yes.
Chris, good morning. You look very smart.
Thank you.
What is this? This is magnificent. What is it?
It's a rail bus, the first kind of rail buses we had in Sweden. This one is made in 1936.
Can we go for a ride?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Where can I sit? Where's best out of the way? Here?
Ja, där till höger.
Thank you. Oh. They're very easy to drive, aren't they?
Yes, like a car.
Rolf's lovely Hilding Carson rail bus is taking us out into the suburbs. By the 1930s, Sweden had built lots of little local lines. But it was becoming too expensive to run conventional steam trains in remote areas. How many people, how many passengers?
24 passengers.
24 passengers.
We were replacing steam locomotive pulled trains, where you didn't have so many passengers.
Look out, here we go, level crossing. It's amazing to think that this is over 80 years old and it's still running. And it's brought me to somewhere very, very old indeed. Spread out around a 15th century church, Gammelstad is one of the oldest settlements of its kind. A so-called church town. Several centuries ago, Sweden was a very religious country. This was the only church for miles around, and you had to get there on a Sunday. If you didn't, you're liable to be ostracized. So they built these little houses just to stay in literally for a few hours overnight, Saturday night, Sunday morning, go to church, and then make the long journey home. Kind of costly, but much less costly than losing your immortal soul. Before I take my next train, I'm taking a detour into Finland. Whoa, these roads are icy. I have to confess, this has absolutely nothing to do with Scandinavian railways, but there's a certain place I've always dreamed of visiting. I'm heading over the border and up through Finnish Lapland to Rovaniemi, a city razed to the ground by retreating Nazi forces during World War II, that has been reborn as a magical place where wishes come true. On you go, boy.
So this is the home of Father Christmas. 500,000 visitors come here every year from all over the world.
I'm writing to you for the things I would like.
You're so busy.
Yes.
Busy, busy.
Busy, yes.
How many letters does Father Christmas get?
500,000 per year.
500,000 a year.
Yes.
And they're from,
Around.
just looking around, they're from all over the world.
Yeah. About 30,000 letters per day.
I love this one. Little girl, she says, I've been a very good girl for Mummy and Daddy, so please can I have one pink car, one blue car, the same size as Daddy's, one new baby doll, one trampoline, one horse, and some lip gloss. And she's 3. She's 3. Wow. Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? It's a lovely thing to do. Santa Claus is in here. Hello, Father Christmas.
Hello.
How nice to see you.
Hey. Hey, Chris, I haven't seen you for a long time.
Well, I've been very busy.
You have.
How's it going this year? Have you got lots of presents for people?
Oh, you know, we've been doing quite a few.
Yeah, but I'm here now.
And you are here now, yeah. So you tell me, what would you like
Ooh.
to have?
Well, I've been mainly a good boy. Well, I was a bit naughty. Mainly I've been good. I'd like a fishing rod.
All right, very
and
good.
a fishing reel.
All right.
And a fishing float.
All right.
Some hooks.
All right, very good.
And some line.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just in case, I think I put a 25 quid gift card to the local fish shop.
You're a very nice man, Father Christmas.
Yeah. See you very soon again. You will. Have a Merry Christmas. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
He's been a clever boy now this year. I'm very, very surprised.
I loved it in Finland last night with Father Christmas, but we're back on the road. We're back in Sweden on a really wild morning. Look at it out there. It's been hovering between -9, -10 on the dial about the last hour. I'm heading to a place called Bergen to catch my next train. On the way, I'm going to check out a rather unusual military facility. You always think of Scandinavia as a pretty peaceful part of the world, which it is. Norway, Sweden have seen no armed conflict since the end of World War II. But they've always felt there's the threat of conflict. And we're going to a place that shows just how real they felt that threat to be. This is Rodberg's Fortet, the Red Mountain Fort. It's vast, it's carved out of solid rock, and it's more than 100 years old. Out here in the middle of nowhere, for some reason, they went to a huge amount of trouble. This huge open area was originally just solid rock, and gangs of workmen slowly smashed their way down with very basic tools, shovels, picks, obviously some dynamite, but progress was agonizingly slow. But eventually they opened up this huge chasm. They cleared 245,000 cubic meters of rock and rubble, and at the end they took the whole lot away, down the hill, by wheelbarrow.
After creating the huge moat, the work gangs dug dozens of winding tunnels deep into the rocks. These were used for barracks and workspaces for hundreds of Swedish soldiers.
One surprising fact about this fortress is that it was fully manned up till 1998. For over 90 years, it housed an army of soldiers who were on more or less constant red alert. They were here to protect against foreign invasion, and mainly that meant foreign invasion coming from the east, from Russia.
What would Russia want in this frozen waste? One thing: iron ore. The vast reserves of it up in Arctic Sweden.
Up here on this mountain top, which is the roof of the fort, you can see exactly why the generals wanted this fort and 4 others like it in this area. Those guns which are still active are pointed over there towards Finland and beyond that Russia. The thinking was that if the Russians ever did invade, they could be stopped in their tracks here.
The Red Mountain Fort was strategically placed to protect both the iron ore mines and the railway built to service them. This is the railway that transformed the fortunes of this country.
They don't hang about in the stations, we're moving.
The line stretches 300 miles across Arctic Scandinavia. Today, I'll be going as far as Kiruna.
The Swedish name for this line is Malmbanan, which to us English means the iron ore line, which pretty much tells you exactly what its main purpose is. Passenger trains run back and forth like this 12 months of the year, but the big business is transporting iron ore. Just passing one of these iron ore trains. It just seems to be going on and on and on from mile after mile.
During World War II, the iron ore carried by this railway was the key to Sweden's neutrality. By playing both sides and keeping Nazi Germany supplied with iron, Sweden avoided invasion.
It's difficult to see, though, what else the Swedes could have done, because if they hadn't, they would inevitably have been completely overrun and swamped by the Germans, exactly the same as Norway. Kiruna, and it's snowing. It's really snowing. This is wild.
Kiruna is dominated by its Iron Mountain. Inside is the world's biggest underground iron ore mine.
We're just coming up to the entrance to the mine. As you can see, it's a big road tunnel. And we drive into there, into this massive complex, and just start going down and down and down, and further underground. The sheer scale of this place is just amazing. It's the biggest and deepest mine of its type in the world. They're currently digging 1.3 kilometers underground, and just to get around this place, there's 400 kilometers of road for the workers to travel on. Every day they produce 60,000 tons of pure iron. That's enough to build 6 Eiffel Towers every single day.
Up above, the people of Kiruna depend utterly on the mine. They couldn't survive here in the Arctic Circle without the income it provides. But they're now facing a harsh reality.
The directors of the mining company told the people of Kiruna there was a real problem. The town centre here is right over the centre of the iron ore seam, and it's undermined. In other words, it could basically completely disappear down a great big hole. Most people would have said, okay, we'll just move away. But the people of Kiruna said, no, We love our town, we'll just move it up the road.
So how are the locals feeling about the ultimate monster move?
So do you dread the move or do you look forward to it?
Både och. Det är lite skräckblandad förtjusning med det här, men väldigt, väldigt spännande.
Why do you just not go somewhere else?
Den här stan betyder så mycket, så att jag vill verkligen kämpa för att den ska leva vidare.
Do you ever think you might just disappear down a hole in the ground?
Nej.
That's English. Great place, Karuna, great people. They have this attitude. If the wealth from the mines created this town, now the mining means the town's got to move, then the town will move. Tomorrow, I'm travelling on the strongest and most powerful train on Earth.
It's the final day of my Scandinavian railway adventure.
I love this. This great beast is just one of the iron ore trains that goes from Kiruna here, where the mines are, all the way across the Norwegian border to Narvik, right on the edge of the fjord, and out into the Atlantic. Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Do we know where we're going?
Yes.
That is good. Just starting to move very slowly as we pull this massive tonnage all the way to Norway.
With 22-year-old trainee driver Jorgen at the controls, we'll be travelling 105 miles over the mountains into Norway to my final destination, Narvik.
Just passing another one of the iron ore trains. 10 a day out and 10 a day back, and they do that every single day of the year, right through the winter months, non-stop. There are 2 locomotives at the front, specially designed. They are the strongest and most powerful locomotives on Earth. 68 trucks, each one with 100 tons of iron ore in. The whole train is something over 8,000 tons. And stopping takes quite a lot of effort.
But on this locomotive, that effort doesn't go to waste.
When you're braking, slowing down, coming down into Narvik, you're building up power.
Yep. A lot of power.
How does that work? I don't understand that.
So the motor becomes a generator, basically.
So you build up the power as you brake, and then what happens to that power? Where does it go?
It goes to anything that needs power. For example, other trains.
That's amazing.
So a train going downhill can power another train going back uphill. But when you're pulling thousands of tons downhill on an Arctic ice railway, even the best brakes have limits.
Oh. What's that? Is that wheel slipping?
Yeah, it is. It's because we're pulling all the weight.
We're
So the
pulling.
wheels are slipping. Yeah.
But if my wheels slip in my car, I get worried. But it's okay in a train. You
Yeah,
just
this little is fine, but if you get a lot, you can jump off the tracks, and that's not okay.
No, not okay at all.
Quite strong wind chill here now, but what a view! We're just about leaving Sweden, coming up to the border with Norway, and then we start to go down towards Narvik and towards the sea. This is just one brilliant journey. Ah! God! Why did I do that? It's so cold. Oh. So this station is the last station in Sweden. We go into this tunnel, and when we come out the other side, we'll be in Norway. Now, there's the border. We are now in Norge. We have left Sweden. Welcome to Norway. You can tell now this is very much Norway, very different terrain, really wild, rugged, mountainous rocks. And the first fjord down there, that will have been formed by a glacier tens of thousands of years ago, and that will go all the way out into the Norwegian Sea and then eventually to the Atlantic.
The reason this part of the line exists is that the Norwegian port of Narvik is ice-free all year round. But its existence also meant the tranquility of the fjords was shattered in April 1940.
On the 10th of April 1940, 5 British destroyers sailed up this fjord and opened fire on a German battleship that occupied the port of Narvik the day before. These were the first salvos in what became 2 of the most important battles of the war, the first and second battles of Narvik. The Germans lost 8 destroyers, 1 U-boat and more than 1,000 men during the 2 battles. They had to abandon Narvik and this part of Norway. The Allies were ecstatic, but their rejoicing didn't last that long.
Just a few weeks later, after a series of defeats in France, the British evacuated their troops from Narvik. German soldiers retook the port and retained control for the rest of the war.
The great thing about the victory for Hitler was that he kept control of this railway and kept control of the massive quantities of iron ore that it produced. That meant the iron and the steel produced more tanks, more battleships and more machine guns, and increased Hitler's chances of winning the war. Luckily, it didn't work.
Since the war, this railway has been as busy as ever, and the ore trains run down this route to ice-free Narvik throughout the winter. After an epic 1,800-mile trip across Norway, Sweden and Finland, we're pulling into Narvik.
That has been such a good journey. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure, Chris.
I can't believe you're only 22. What a guy. Thank you so much. Ah, that is one of the great journeys. Just incredible. We have just pulled 6,800 tons of iron ore. Another 9 of those will come in here today, 10 a day, every single day of the year. They will all go now into conveyor belts up there. Eventually they go onto ships, and from there they will be sold to customers all over the world. I think, considering they weren't too keen on the idea in the first place, the Swedes and the Norwegians have come up with one of the finest, greatest railway systems in the world, in the most spectacular setting. It really is a winter wonderland.